Yep, Tex is back. Yeah, I've been gone for a little bit. My family and I took a vacation. We went down on a Carnival cruise and been gone a few days, but I'm back. As soon as I get back, of course, the first thing you got to do is you got to start up your newspaper again. You got to go down and pick up your mail that you had them holding for you while you were gone, so it didn't look like your house was abandoned. So I'm going through my mail, and what do I come across but a letter from Comcast? And I'm reading this thing because I'm like, why am I getting a letter from Comcast? I'm paid up. And they go, "Dear Comcast customer, thank you for choosing Xfinity from Comcast. However, during a recent review of your account, we determined that your current service level does not meet the minimum service level required for your account." Well, wait a minute. They're the ones giving me the service. If I'm not getting the current service level, isn't that their fault, not mine? I mean, I give them money every month. That's my end of the deal. Their end of the deal is to give me service. So I'm really confused now, and I'm trying to figure out what they're talking about. And basically, it says, effective with your next billing statement, your service charges for the affected services will raise. So in other words, they're telling me that they're not happy with my level of service that they provide, so they're going to raise those services and charge me more money, whether I want it or not. And then it goes on and says, we know that you expect a great customer experience from us at Comcast, which includes receiving an accurate bill. Yeah, I would expect that they know how much my bill is. That is part of their job again, and that's why you get a monthly bill, is so you know how much money to give them. Although with as many times as they change it and as many new things as they put on it, little fee for this, little fee for that, you never know what fees and taxes and hidden taxes they're going to be putting on there. So it can be kind of confusing on their accurate bill. So then they say they sincerely apologize for any inconvenience this causes. Yeah, making me give them more money is a little bit of an inconvenience. So then it goes on saying, if you have any questions about this letter, please contact them. So I did. I went down there yesterday afternoon and showed them the letter and was like, what is this? Well, I ended up making a few changes to my thing, and I actually brought my bill down a little bit, let them have a few things back, because I don't watch that much television. And I told them flat out, hey, if I get much more perturbed with Comcast, I'm just going to buy one of those flat antennas that you stick up on the wall and just, get all of my television either A, on my computer, or B, over the air. And I'll just do away with having, cable. Because any cable show you want these days, you can get using things like Hulu or Netflix or, there's dozens of services out there. Television as a media is changing dramatically, and it's changing daily. Now I'm almost 60. I remember when a remote control was the youngest kid running over there because, dad told him to go, turn the channel 3 clicks to the right. Nowadays, kids don't care what time a show comes on. If they want to watch it, sometimes they'll wait and just binge watch 4 or 5 episodes at the end of the month. Hey, they're caught up. They're good to go. So Comcast, pulling this type of stuff to me is not the smartest thing in the world. But then I got to thinking about, why would they be doing this, irritating people who are using their service. We're going to change your service because we don't like what you're getting, which is essentially what they were doing. And it suddenly occurred to me why this was happening. Now, I don't know if y'all can remember back a few months back when Mayor Burke was giving a bunch of state of the city type addresses, and he was making the big announcement that EPB, the city's other cable and internet provider, which is coincidentally owned by the city, was going to be starting out with a new program where people who are less wealthy, let's just say it that way, they're less wealthy than the rest of us, those of us that can afford to give Comcast all the extra money we have when they want it. But they're going to be providing them with internet service, high-speed internet, not just internet service, high-speed internet service through EPB of 100 megabytes of high-speed internet for $26.99 per month, less than half the market rate of $57.99 a month, which is just above EPB's cost of providing the service. Everybody was, patting themselves on the back real big. Oh, we're doing a nice thing here. We're providing, the disadvantaged in our society with 100 megabytes of high-speed internet. Now, first off, my main question is, you got to have a pretty good computer, first off, to be able to really make use of that much speed. I've got a pretty decent computer, and I'm only getting 75 megs from Comcast, and it does everything I need it to do. Why would these people be needing 100 meg of service? But then, on top of that, no company is going to intentionally lose money. They might have to shift a few things around here and there. They might have to change a few things. They might have to raise prices here and there, but they ain't going to lose money. And see, what ended up happening about this is EPB comes out with this program. Well, what's the immediate result? Well, Comcast, in the tit-for-tat game, they have to come out with their own version of this to where they also can be giving the less wealthy amongst us a service like that. A service that I contend, do they really need? Now, yes, I can see them having some form of internet service, but do they really need 100 meg, which is better than I'm getting, 100 meg for a cheaper price than I'm paying? But see, that's where this price difference comes in. They're not satisfied with my service, so they're going to raise my price. Well, where does that money that they raise my price go to? Maybe to help fund these other programs one way or the other. That's the thing about accountants. They can always lose $1 here and there so they can gain $1 somewhere else and not leave a whole bunch of fingerprints on it. Now, I've made no secret of the fact that back years ago, I worked at one of the state prisons in Texas. I was a carpenter foreman, and my crew was inmates. And, the inmates got a lot of really nice stuff for being inmates. That was back when HBO was first coming out, and they would get to see movies. They'd have people show up from time to time to give concerts that you and I would pay handsomely for. Remember Johnny Cash went and did a free concert for Folsom Prison? And they still have stuff like that go on. Where do inmates, people who have broken the laws, people who have disrupted the lives of tax-paying citizens like you and me, where do they need privileges that you and I would be lucky to be able to get, that you and I would have to pay for, and they get free? And that's what this program is doing, this freebie program of 100 megabyte service to the low-income households. Now, first off, how many kids going to school are going to actually be utilizing this service for schoolwork? Well, don't they have labs at the schools? that the kids can go up and utilize? Don't they have computer labs at every single recreation center in town? Don't they have computer labs at every single library in town? If a kid is really wanting to utilize the internet for study, they have plenty of options. But then you could, give them, a decent service, but they don't need high speed, ultra good service that you and I can't afford. Because I guarantee you, folks, some of that 100 megabyte service that's going to these people's houses is going to be Netflix, Facebook, Hulu. It's not going to be, Junior's back there in the back room studying to go to Harvard. No. I've got nothing against people bettering themselves. And I am all for giving somebody a hand up. But I am not at all happy when that hand up becomes a hand out, especially when it's a better handout than I get. Now, here's the latest little wrinkle on that. I don't know if y'all remember, but not that long ago, the FCC is trying to take over and regulate the internet. Now they're saying that what they want to do is they want to start making it so that they have a program called Lifeline, which is going to be along the same lines as this, but on a national level. Basically, they're saying that the internet is something that everybody should be able to have access to. Back in the 20s and 30s, they wanted to extend phone lines to every household in the entire country. And they started putting all these different taxes on it. And some of those taxes that they used initially to expand the phone service, we are still paying on today. Washington, D.C., no good tax will ever die. Even after it's done what it was supposed to do, they'll figure out something else to use that tax money for. It ain't going away. Well, that's what they're wanting to do. It's not enough that we have plain old telephone service to everybody. They call it POTS, plain old telephone service. No, it's not good enough that they have just regular old cable going to every house in the nation. Now they're trying to line it up so that we're going to have fiber optic going to every house in America that's paid for by you and me. But the thing of it is there again, how many people are actually going to be able to utilize that service? We're paying for something that's not needed and giving it to people that can't really utilize it effectively at the expense of our wallets. But we're supposed to applaud for the government, spending our money in this fashion. Meanwhile, our roads are collapsing. Everybody has to get around. Why don't we fix some stuff before we start worrying about adding stuff? Let's fix a few roads. Let's fix a few bridges. And in the meanwhile, leave me alone. Don't be telling me that I don't know how much service you want me to have, and leave my bill alone. Because I'll cut the sucker off. And part of this is we need to be telling our government officials how we feel. EPB would not have come up with this scenario had they not been goosed a little by some of the politicians like Mayor Burke. You know, they weren't sitting around someday at the EPB headquarters or at Comcast headquarters going, how can we give away more service and make other people pay for it? Well, first off, making other people pay for it, that's a Democrat line right there, of which somebody like our current mayor just might be. We've got to tell our politicians when we like stuff. We've got to be able to tell our politicians when we don't like stuff. And we really need to tell our politicians when we don't like the job they're doing. And we're going to have that chance Thursday. This coming Thursday, September the 3rd, Republican presidential candidate Marco Rubio from Florida. He's not ours, but he's still, he's in the race. He's wanting to be our president. Will be coming to the Scenic City on Thursday for a campaign rally. And this rally is going to be at the Lindsay Street Hall, which is at 901 Lindsay Street. And they're saying, that, and I agree with this, we are honored that they're coming to Chattanooga. We've had several people now come to Chattanooga who are in the presidential race. We've got several more who are making plans. We had Ted Cruz just a few weeks ago. We had Rick Santorum, who came by in June. We've got Ben Carson, who's going to be coming by in October. And this is good that Chattanooga is getting on the national field like this, that we are able to attract these people because what we think and what we say is important. But see, that's the point right there. We are being courted because they think we have something to say. And that's what we need to do. We need to show up at events like this so we can let these candidates know what is important to us, what is not important to us, what we think they need to be doing. When he gives his speech, we need to be there to applaud when necessary, but we need to be there so we can boo when necessary. That's an important part of the Democrat process. To let them, that's our job. Their job as politicians is to enact stuff and to run this country. Our job as citizens is to give them feedback and to give them direction. And the problem has been here lately is we've had a lot of people in Washington, D.C. on both sides of the gap that are not listening to the people. In fact, they're doing the exact opposite of what the people are telling them. The Republican Party ran on doing away with a lot of things that Obama's been pushing, Obamacare, on the immigration problem. Has the hierarchy done any of that after they promised in the election process that they would do it? No. That's when you boo, folks. So I'm planning on being there. See what he says. See how much I think he really means what he's doing. And I'd like to see everybody else be there because not only do the politicians need to cowboy up to do what is right, we need to cowboy up. We need to do what's right. We need to let them know that we're watching them, and we're watching them all the time. And that's why we also need to look at companies like EPB, which is partially taxpayer funded. They are a government entity. They are owned by the city of Chattanooga. We need to show up at Chattanooga council meetings. We need to call the mayor's office and say, this is not what EPB needs to be doing. Oh, of course, unless you like it, in which case call them and tell them you do like it. But the point is if the people sit by meekly and allow stuff to happen, you may not like what's allowed to happen. We need to be a loud, boisterous group of people as a society to let the politicians know what we're doing. You know, they called us back in Nixon's day the silent majority. Well, folks, it's time for that silent majority to not be so silent. We need to start making noise. And we need to start doing it sooner. There's not going to be anybody left to hear it or to do anything about it, because this country won't be here anymore. Then who's going to watch cable? We'll be back for more Cowboy Up With Tex after these commercial words.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Join me for a delicious barbecue dinner that's a fundraiser for Union Gospel Mission. We're serving up barbecue, either pork or chicken, slaw, baked beans, and dessert, all on Labor Day to support our ministry to homeless guys. We'll be at table on Monday, Labor Day, at New Haven Baptist Church at 1058 Graysville Road, right at the intersection of East Brainerd Road. We'll serve from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. or until the barbecue runs out. This is John Rector, and the meal is free, but with joyous hearts, we will accept donations. All proceeds go straight to Union Gospel Mission to support our Christian programs for men who commit to stay and study with us. For more information, give me a call at 752-4998. The name is John, and we're looking forward to seeing you.
If you have the DTs, the shakes, because your phone is on the fritz, you have nomophobia. You need help. Your telecom doctor is in. Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall. Cell Surgeon yanks open the ribcage of your phone, pries out the dead heart, and puts in the beating life that you lead on your cell phone. Broken screen, phone not charging, water damage, battery given out? Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall next Old Chicago Pizza. Check us out on Facebook. Open Sunday. Cell Surgeon. We bring your phone back to life. Mention Hot News Talk Radio and get 10% off. We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection, loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
When my brother and I opened the first Jets Pizza, we believed if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300-plus stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and one topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jets.
Compass Media Network's coverage of the NFL. Hi, this is Jerry Recco. Join Kevin Ray, Danny White, and myself for all the action.
Hot News Talk 1240.
If it's the NFL, it's right here.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Yep, Hot News Talk Radio. We've got you covered. You can get us on YouTube. You can get us on hotnewstalkradio.com. You can get us on Twitter. You can get us all sorts of ways. Of course, the best way to get us is just tune it into 1240 AM, which if you're listening to me, you're probably doing. Cowboy Up With Tex. You got Tex here. One little note real quick. Tomorrow, September the 2nd, at noon, there's going to be a rally in front of the Solomon Building downtown. That's right there on Georgia Street. And this rally is going to be for Lieutenant Commander Tim White, one of the officers that had the audacity, the sheer audacity, to fire his personal weapon at an out-of-control Muslim trying to shoot U.S. soldiers and citizens on U.S. soil. Well, you know, the military, the Pentagon keeps trying to say, well, you know, we haven't charged him yet. You know, we probably won't. But they haven't cleared him either. They haven't said, never mind. You know, they're kind of waiting for it to die down before they render a judgment. Well, if they're trying to wait for it to die down, that doesn't exactly bode well. Waiting for everybody to get distracted by the next Kim Kardashian moment or something, you know. So there's going to be a rally there tomorrow at noon in front of the Solomon Building to show that us citizens are keeping an eye on this. And we do applaud Lieutenant Commander Tim White for what he did. It is every American's constitutional right and duty to protect himself against all enemies, foreign and domestic. This guy kind of fell under both of them. He was a foreigner who had been accepted into our country. So he was both foreign and domestic. But he still felt it necessary to try to kill people. And this man's going to be castigated by the Pentagon for protecting himself and for trying to protect others. Newsflash to the U.S. government. Newsflash to the Pentagon. Read the Bill of Rights. It's called the Second Amendment. When you join the military, you do not give up any of your rights. You're there defending our ability to exercise those rights while you still have the right to them yourself. So let's show up and show them that we are watching. That's the problem these days, is too many people are not worried about the law. They're worried about political correctness. And when people break the law, they don't do anything about it because of political correctness. When political correctness outweighs the law, the country will fall. And in that vein, Louis Farrakhan, the leader of the Nation of Islam, which is an American organization. It's not from the Middle East. It's American grown, the Nation of Islam, and it is overwhelmingly black, was discussing the upcoming Million Man March, which will be this coming October, just a little over a month from now. And Louis Farrakhan said it was time to pull down the American flag. Now, first off, right there, that one statement, if you or I were to say it was time to pull down the American flag, we would be arrested for treason. But that wouldn't be politically correct. He's saying it's time for blacks to kill whites. And Louis Farrakhan has said this more than once. In fact, he's been traveling to the U.S. for his Justice or Else tour. You know how they used to run around, no justice, no peace, no justice, no peace. Well, you know, then it was hands up, don't shoot, till they figured out that the guy never had his hands up. You know, well, now it's the Justice or Else tour. And so he's saying this repeatedly. It's not like he said it one time and somebody just accidentally heard it. He's being very outspoken in saying this. He says, death is sweeter than watching us slaughter each other to the joy of a 400-year-old enemy. Okay, then watching them slaughter each other. Should, instead of him being calling for blacks to kill whites, maybe he should be calling on blacks to quit killing blacks. Well, he says that 10,000 in the midst of the million, 10,000 fearless men who say that death is sweeter than continued life under tyranny. What he's doing is he's calling for 10,000 volunteers in this million-man march to arm themselves and go out and kill to kill whites, especially white police officers. Now, I have complained on this station a number of times about police officers doing things illegal. When they shoot people, when they kill people, when they assault people, when they rob people. But I condemn anybody that does this. The only thing I call for is for the police to police themselves. I want a police officer who is just as vigorous against lawbreakers, whether they're wearing civilian clothes or blue clothes. That's all I ask. This society would crumble if we do not have good law enforcement, but good law enforcement, good police officers, good sheriff's deputies, good highway patrol officers. That's somebody that enforces the law equally, no matter who the offender is, even if it's one of their own. We do not need these people running around like what just happened in Houston, shooting police officers in the back of the head. In the last several days, we've had a number of police personnel killed. Just like we had our sailor and our Marines that were shot for no other reason than they were wearing a uniform. But meanwhile, what do we hear out of Washington? That is what we heard out of Washington. Nothing. Dead air. Trayvon Martin gets shot. Oh, that could have been my son. Oh, that was terrible. Woo. Other lawbreakers get killed. They jump up and down. But when a police officer gets shot, assassinated, we don't hear squat from our president. And now here's Louis Farrakhan saying that the Quran calls for retaliation when slaves are oppressed. I don't know if he noticed, but slavery ended back in the 1860s, over 100 years ago. He says, if the federal government will not intercede in our affairs, then we must rise up and kill those who kill us. Well, those that are killing them are more and more themselves. Rise up and protect yourself from the bad elements in your neighborhoods. Just like here in Chattanooga, we just had our 93rd shooting of the year in Chattanooga. And the vast majority of those are black on black. You don't see people coming down off a Signal Mountain or off a Lookout Mountain. We're going hunting. We're hunting rabbits. No, you don't see that. You see gangs running rampant through the neighborhoods, and nobody in that neighborhood, especially none of the people like the Nation of Islam people, doing a whole lot about it. But they're calling on their followers to kill whites. Do they think that if every white person in America went away, that the black on black killings would quit? I don't think so. He says, talking about the Nation of Islam, we must rise up and kill those who kill us, stalk them and kill them, and let them feel the pain of death that we are feeling. Why is this man not in jail? What is Obama and his Justice Department waiting on? We've got police officers being killed across this nation, and you don't hear one word of condemnation coming from Loretta Lynch or Barack Obama about these words. You have people like the New Black Panther Party marching around carrying guns. Okay, got no problem with them carrying guns. But they're not doing it for self-protection. They're doing it to scare people, to intimidate people. They go stand outside of voting precincts. And if you try to go in there as a white person and vote, they're going to get in your face and just dare you to cross their line. Oh, but there's no voter intimidation going on because we're white and they're black. But if the Ku Klux Klan was standing outside those doors and it was a black person, you'd have the federal government down there in a heartbeat. Now that, folks, is racism. It doesn't matter what your color of skin is. If you're doing something against somebody else because of their skin color, regardless of what that skin color is, that is racism. And this federal government does not recognize that. Meanwhile, we also have the Black Lives Matter group going around, getting more and more outrageous. Just the other day at the Iowa State Fair, marching in groups, blocking the aisles, blocking the roads, with signs saying, "Kill the pigs, roast the pigs." Talking about police officers, of course. Black lives matter, but white lives don't. Bernie Sanders learned that the hard way when he tried to say from his stage that all lives matter. The other Democrat, I'm trying to remember what his name is. He's like the governor of Maryland, you know. He was trying to say that, and he got shouted down. No lives matter, but the black lives matter. Aren't we all God's children? Isn't that what Martin Luther King said? Aren't we all God's children? But not to them. But we're the racist ones. I swear to pieces. And people wonder why our country is falling left and right. You know, that was one of the things that I noticed when I was on my trip. We took a cruise. We went down into the Caribbean where we went down to Honduras. We went down to Belize. We went to Mexico. And at every one of those 3 stops, when we got off the board, we had to show our ID. And then we were in kind of like a little port area that was owned by Carnival, where they had their own little shops. You had to wade through all of their little shops before you could then get out of their little tourist zone. Then you had to show your ID again to soldiers before you could actually go into town. It wasn't that big a deal in Honduras, and it wasn't that big a deal in Belize, but folks down there in Mexico, in Cozumel, you know, we got the once over. I thought it was so funny, you know, that we as tourists going there to spend money, to give them money, and we have to show ID left and right. Going in and coming out. We had to show ID several times to get back on the boat. But yet, according to a lot of the liberals, a lot of the leftists, we ought to have an open border. And we can't call them undocumented. And you know what? That's right. They are not undocumented. That's one thing that is a false saying they're undocumented. Oh, they've got documents. They've got lots of documents. They just don't have the right documents. Because let's look at something here a minute. Increasingly, if you are standing against the consequences of illegal immigration, you're called a racist. In fact, if you don't want illegals swaying the national vote, because you've got a lot of people in New York and in California that are striving to let illegal immigrants be able to vote in national elections. And here's one for you. Do you realize that when you do the census count is supposed to count the citizens of this nation, but increasingly over the last several census counts, they've been also striving to count how many illegals there are, which that population is then used to appoint the number of politicians like senators that are used in this country. The bigger the population, the more senators you get. So if you have a huge group of illegals, you get better representation than if you've got a moderate group of law-abiding people. You can both have, say, 50,000 law-abiding people, but if they've got another 40,000 illegal immigrants, they get better representation. Now, how is that fair? How is that right? It's not. But getting back to Mexico, people don't realize that Mexico has some of the strictest border security in the Western Hemisphere. They also have some of the strictest voting laws. In fact, they require voter ID cards. Yep, that's right. Mexico has voter ID cards, and if you don't have a voter ID card, you can't vote. Which, you know, there again, try crossing the border going into Mexico. They're going to look you over. They're going to give all of your information a once over, which makes you kind of wonder, well, if their border control is so stout, how do so many people from Central and South America and other countries get all the way through Mexico to get to our southern border? Because the Mexicans let them. They take every penny they can from them. They rape the women and children, and I do mean that literally, and then kick what's left into our country for us to pick up the pieces for. But there again, we're the ones that are racist. We're the ones that are taking advantage of people. They have the voter ID cards. In fact, the vast majority of countries around the world have voter ID cards, including Europe. In fact, a lot of times their voter ID card, like in Mexico, doubles as what is basically a national ID card, not just for voting, but for lots of other stuff. You know, it's been getting to the point to where they're saying more and more that here in the United States, you can use your passport for all sorts of things, for all sorts of ID. We don't have a national ID card, but you can use your passport for one. You start to go into a federal building, let me see your driver's license. You start to go through an airport, let me see, you know, for a regular domestic flight. You don't want to show them your driver's license? Show them your passport. Okay, good to go. Yeah. See, because what had happened is historically there'd been so much electoral fraud in Mexico that they determined to have a major electoral reform that included the creation of an electoral ID card that has become, like I said, their national ID card. And even at that, the amount of voter fraud they had doesn't begin to compare to what we have in places like Chicago, the home city of President Obama. It was the Chicago machine that got him in there. Well, yeah. Like they said, you know, Obama goes to Washington, D.C. and says, oh, we have no evidence of voter fraud, so we don't want to do that. Well, first off, if there's no evidence of voter fraud, how is it that there's a lot of cities that 110% of the registered voters are voting? Where's those extra 10% coming from? And that happens. And there have been people convicted of it, but yet they don't know of any. Well, you know, it's really easy. Just check with your own Justice Department. But with the Obama administration, they are actually complicit in bringing illegals into this country and not following immigration law. Well, you know, For once, Obama actually surprised me. Obama actually stood up and said that it is important to secure the border, that you have to have a secure border to protect its citizens. The problem was he wasn't talking about our border. He was talking about the border of Turkey to try to keep ISIS out of Turkey and to keep refugees from Syria and Iraq from going into Turkey. Refugees. Now, see, we're supposed to just open up our country and just let them stream in by literally the hundreds of thousands, whether they've got documentation or not. In fact, it's better for them if they don't have documentation, because if we don't know who they are, we have to take their word for who they are. And then we can't check. Because tell me, folks, and yes, this sounds a little racist, but you know what? It's also very true. If you take certain Arabs and you take certain Hispanics and put them side by side, you can't really tell that much of a difference between them until they start talking. So if you get an Arab that's very fluent in Spanish, how are you going to be able to know if he's Hispanic or not if he doesn't have any paperwork? Oh, it all disappeared in a fire back in El Salvador. Okay, you come on in. You know, and they go, Allah Akbar. You know, oh, wait a minute, what'd you say? Si, senor. If he was actually doing his job according to the Constitution, he would be enforcing immigration law and making sure that everybody who's able to vote could vote, and everybody that can't vote doesn't vote. But that's not his concern. And that's the sad fact of American politics today, which is why this next election is so important. Because, folks, this next election just might be, just very easily could be, the very last national election for president this country has. You have to have a country to need the election. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow with more Cowboy Up with Tex.